Hello everyone. This video will explain why and who is responsible for all of the censorship and overwhelming propaganda and lies that have been spewed to the American public since World War II, but specifically the uptick in the censorship and lies that have been happening ever since President Donald Trump has been elected into office on November 9th, 2016. My name is Sarah, and included in the show notes will be links to all of the sources that I quote and use throughout this video. This video is for education purposes only, and I ask you to make your own conclusions and think for yourself concerning this topic. Why are conservatives experiencing such unjustified censorship? Could it be part of a plan that was written by a think tank named Intregrity Initiative, tasked with the job to ensure that President Donald Trump does not win a second term? The following reports came from the LaRouche PAC and the Gray Zone. On November 23rd, 2018, someone started publishing purloined documents from the British Military Integrity Initiative, an international network of politicians, journalists, academics, foundations, and military officers engaged in a very dirty black propaganda campaign funded by the British Foreign and Commonwealth Office, NATO, Facebook, intelligence agencies, and non-governmental organizations, such as the Smith Richardson Foundation, here in the United States, all while posing as a Scottish charity. Then, on December 18th, the House of Lords released a report on the imperatives of current British policy, imperatives for which the Intregrity Initiative's information warriors and a host of similar outfits have been tasked to engineer popular support. The Intregrity Initiative claims it focuses on Russian hybrid disinformation warfare, a form of irregular warfare they claim Russia is conducting. Its own purloined, copied internal papers, however, expose the initiative, rather than Putin as the master propagandist targeting and smearing those considered subversives, like British Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn, United States Senator Bernie Sanders, and other anti-war figures such as Donald Trump. But really, they are just a group formed at the United Nations, G9, that want and need to subvert President Donald Trump's presidency. I previously did a video on the migration impact policy that the United Nations is urgently trying to implement worldwide in order to facilitate chaos and open borders all over the world. In that video, I explained that there was a new group that was being formed to counter President Trump's presidency and ensure that he does not serve a second term. According to this group, President Donald Trump, they say, seeks to upend their liberal world order. And so the globalist-minded Council on Foreign Relations, a key deep state institution behind the world order agenda, is calling for the creation of a new group of nine. A group of nine committee to save the rules-based order from Trump, basically the proposed coalition of 9 powerful governments, which would include many of America's closest allies and even the emerging European Union superstate, would hold down this global governance fort until a pliable globalist can once again be placed back into the White House. This committee that was created is called the Intregrity Initiative. We, the people, must continue to fight for our freedom. The British House of Lords, with associated papers and dependencies, is entitled UK Foreign Policy in a Shifting World Order. The discussion which follows is drawn from the report itself. its associated papers and dependencies, and other recent statements of the key participants in shaping the report's conclusions. In the report itself, the Lords huff that Donald Trump has completely imperiled the globalist, post-war rules-based international order, as well as the special relationship between the United States and Britain. They say this while at the same time reveling in their success in infiltrating and controlling the United States following World War II. The covert defense and intelligence relationships flowing from the special relationship are enough, they argue, to survive one term of Trump, but not two. Otherwise, they are terrified by the activation of "we the people" in the Brexit vote in Britain and in the 2016 election in the United States. They cite the free ability of the individuals to access information as the central threat to their ability to rule. To answer this, they intend to create censorship and propaganda regimes which would make George Orwell's fictional Ministry of Truth in his novel 1984 seem like child's play. To put things in perspective here, it's useful to review briefly the history of this rules-based international order referred to over and over again in the House of Lords report, promulgated by the Truman presidency and Winston Churchill at the end of World War II. This order preserved colonialism, notwithstanding modern institutionalized forms of debt slavery and deliberate genocidal underdevelopment for the bulk of the world's population. This was against the intent of the American president, Franklin D. Roosevelt, and much of the American population at the time. The IMF and World Bank, Bretton Woods institutions, which Franklin Roosevelt wanted to use for worldwide economic development, and to end British colonialism, became the overlords. Instead of an imperial financial system which enforced Malthusianism, population control, and underdevelopment while securing vital mineral and other natural resources for the realm, this primary alliance also built a series of military bases throughout the world to project imperial power, in their words, based upon British colonial policing and geopolitical stratagems. For a period of time following the war, the United States and other advanced sector nations enjoyed economic prosperity. This is the period to which President Trump refers to as the era of American greatness. It was the result of then extinct and new capital-intensive investments in United States infrastructure building, in new plant and equipment, and building out further the machine tool capacities that had dominated the war mobilization. It included great technological, scientific, and technological horizon programs, such as Kennedy's moon mission, but such programs reflecting the American system of political economy of Alexander Hamilton, Abraham Lincoln, and Franklin Roosevelt all but ended by 1967, when London undertook its final offensive to once again control the world's financial flows. The British chose the moment in which the United States was suffering from the financial and cultural impacts of the genocidal Vietnam War to make their moves. On August 15, 1971, after a series of preliminary steps, they succeeded in taking down the Bretton Woods fixed exchange rate currency system. With the collapse of Bretton Woods, floating exchange rates, currency wars, and speculative financial gambling became the way of the world. Proposals for large-scale development were scrapped as too costly or financially unpredictable. The advanced sector economies were systematically deindustrialized and financialized, with former industrial areas of whole countries turned into wastelands. Jobs were outsourced worldwide in pursuit of the cheapest labor possible. Food cartels replaced the agro-industrial units called family farms. and the United States rail grid was largely abandoned and consolidated, driving populations into urban areas and the coast for mere sustenance. In place of productive jobs and a national mission such as President Kennedy's space program, the majority of citizens in the United States were offered the gig and service economy, drugs, pornography, sports, and Hollywood entertainment to fill their time. And then the new religion of environmentalism, the Green Deal, and its subcult, anthropogenic climate change, were used to justify wholesale genocide throughout underdevelopment of the world, meeting the demands of Prince Philip and Prince Bernard of the Netherlands to reduce human population down to 1 to 2 billion people. That's what the Green New Deal is. It is population, depopulation of the population. Science became the land of statistics and information technologies, rather than the science which was the actual source of American greatness. The big ideas, bold experiments, and the constant discovery and creativity which characterized the harnessing of nuclear power and space travel to the moon. Instead, the City of London, the private entity against which America fought a revolution, became once again the center of all world finance. Its mantras, free trade, free enterprise, and limited government, were endlessly mouthed by anyone who wanted to become rich or famous. Much of the success of this infiltration can be traced to British recognition of the simple fact that how individuals think about the world and whether their surrounding culture encourages or destroys human creativity constitute the most important battlegrounds of strategic warfare and grand strategy. There is no correlation between CO2 and climate change. None. I have ample links here for you guys to study for hours. Once you click on to these links, you'll see there's more links to click on to, and there's ample evidence to prove that this is a hoax. It's a scam to control the population and to control the energy and resources. That's all it is. It's a way to charge the public more money for things that are already free. Talking about free, use of the state secrets privilege to impede and even shut down litigation in national security related cases became the subject of sharp criticism in legal circles under President George W. Bush's administration, as it sought to ward off a series of post 9/11 cases. So in addition to the state's secrets privilege, there is also government secrecy orders on patents that have stifled more than 5,000 inventions. It is called the Invention Secrecy Act. There are numerous free energy projects and free energy devices available for us to use today. And I have links for all that in the description field for you, in the description box for you to look at your own leisure. Free energy has been available for a very long time, and included in my show notes, just like I said, are just a few of these inventions. Back to the order. The order was freshly updated following the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War by George H.W. Bush and Margaret Thatcher, with France's François Mitterrand playing a supporting role. The former Soviet Union was looted, devastating both its economy and the lifespan of its population, with major hauls of loot diverted to British offshore banks. Imagine that. Now regional genocidal wars and regime change coups, say that fast, were run against any governments not agreeing to the terms of the New World Order. Britain, as is its tradition, contributed some troops, but mostly dictated strategy and targets. Do as I say, not as I do. while allowing use of its worldwide bases for this effort. The American military bore the brunt of the battle. The Balkans, the Middle East, and large parts of Africa were set on fire. Millions of people died. American fighters came home both mentally and physically devastated. Thousands of war refugees flooded Europe. President Trump has called those supporting this order the globalists. Lyndon LaRouche more precisely locates their disease as the Anglo-Dutch liberal system, or the new British Empire. Their stink fairly permeates major institutions of government in the United States on both sides of the aisle. In the House of Lords, they brag about this. They cite their dense and complex set of relationships across many parts of policy, society, and economic and individual life. The special relationship, they say, is like an iceberg in which most activity takes place out of public view. That iceberg, centered in defense and intelligence relationships below the surface, they brag, has so far been able to subvert the declared agenda of the duly elected American President Donald Trump. In 2016, the United States election and the Brexit vote represented wholesale political activation by the people, the overlords' disdain. The deplorables, Trump's forgotten men and women, using ironically the technology invented for social control purposes by Facebook and Twitter as major organizing tools. These were actual exercises of democracy. The Lords and the antics of their Intregrity initiative, their names are always the opposite of what they mean, make it clear that they intend now to kill this activation. Censorship and counter-propaganda, or cognitive infiltration, as Barack Obama's friend Cass Sunstein dubbed the required action, are now being massively deployed in the United States, Britain, and throughout Europe. Actual experimental studies of the impact of propaganda conducted throughout the years demonstrate that it works when populations have no alternatives to look at and are reacting constantly to the media's bombardment of the 24-hour propaganda news cycle. It fails almost immediately when people are introduced to an alternative, such as the publicity surrounding the rapid economic development China is now producing throughout the world, or an alternative such as YouTube, where just everyday people are reporting the news, because now we are the news, because the news cycle is nothing but propaganda. The wonderful thing about human nature is that the imagination and desire for new frontiers and adventures, if provoked, can and will destroy years of tedious work in planning and implementing any fixed social control system that the new overlords of technocracy plan to implement in order to control the entire world's population. In the meantime, of course, British-oriented and supported institutions in the United States, like the Hudson Institute, persistently incite the Trump administration and the Congress about the inevitability of near-term war with China, war with North Korea, war, oh my God, war. They aim to completely destroy the vast potentials of United States-China collaboration, embodied now in Trump's relationship to President Xi Jinping, which would ineluctably leave the British elite sucking history's dust. It is no accident that Michael Pillsbury, Vice President Pence's hawk on China, is a fully accredited fellow of the International Institute for Strategic Studies. What do you know? The front of all British imperial policy, and that the Smith-Richardson Foundation heavily funds both the Intregrity Initiative and the Hudson Institute. The initiative operates on the basis of clusters or contact groups of journalists, military and foreign office personnel, academics, and lobbyists, within almost every European country, the United States, and Canada, and is now looking to expand into the Middle East. These people get alerts, often through the medium of initiative contacts in British embassies, to act when the British Foreign Office perceives a need. A look, coup, something like that. A look at the clusters for the United States and Britain revealed them to be dominated by individuals from the Atlantic Council, the rapidly anti-Russian and anti-Chinese Jamestown Foundation, the Center for European Policy Analysis, and similar National Endowment for Democracy spin-offs. The Atlantic Council is the home of the Digital Research Lab, which tells Dmitry Alperovich, you don't say, the guy who also leads CrowdStrike, the company which manufactured the fake story about Russian hacking of the DNC and John Podesta. It also houses Ben Nemo, who also shills for the Intregrity Initiative, and has written many of the provably fake claims about Putin's purported monster cyber capabilities. The Digital Research Lab was recently hired by Facebook, to police and censor users. The United States cluster includes Evelyn Farkas. Remember Evelyn Farkas? Who formerly had the Russia and Eurasia desk at the Defense Department under Obama and famously mouthed off on an episode of Morning Joe about the Obama administration's unmasking and leaks of classified information to Congress in order to, derail the Trump presidency. The UK cluster includes Anne Applebaum of the Washington Post, Ed Lucas of the Center for European Policy Analysis, Bill Browder and Vadim Kleiner from Browder's Operations, and not surprisingly, Sir Andrew Wood of Orbis Business Intelligence, the firm, founded by Christopher Steele. All these people have been up to their neck in the operations against President Trump. At the center of the Institute's very military operations is the use of propaganda directed simultaneously at both the government and the general population. Institute personnel lobby governments on behalf of war party policies against Russia and China. For example, in their disguise as private parties, while the Institute itself is being paid as a think tank. Did you know that there are over 800 think tanks in Washington, D.C.? By the very same governments. At the same time, the Institute media contacts echo the entirely concocted government debate to the general population. So the population and the government is paying for its own propaganda. Back to the people. Nice. The circular or circle jerk churning of the media sphere is what Obama's former secretary advisor Ben Rhodes called creating a public opinion. The echo chamber. Rhodes cut his national security chops by helping with production of the fraud known as the 9/11 Commission report. This methodology, fully implemented in the British propaganda and regime change operation against Putin, which began with the Litvinenko poisoning in 2006 and dramatically escalated in 2014, has created an astounding and deranged war fever against Putin in Britain and throughout Europe. New research, fresh off the press, dated March 21st, 2019, printed in the Federalist, further confirms the Operations Nerve Center is a Washington-based nonprofit called the Democracy Integrity Project, or TDIP. Among other activities, it pumps out daily research briefings to prominent Washington journalists that I have already talked about previously, as well as congressional staffers to keep the Russia collusion narrative alive. TDIP is led by Daniel J. Jones, a former FBI investigator, Clinton administration volunteer and top staffer to, hold on, California Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein. It employs the key opposition research figures behind the salacious and unverified dossier. What do you know? Isn't she on the Intelligence Committee? Wasn't she on the Gang of Eight? Huh, interesting. And its financial backers include the actor-director Rob Reiner and billionaire activist George Soros. Of course, he's got to be in there. On January 5th, 2017, the Obama administration put forth its phony assessment that Russia had intervened in the American election to defeat Hillary Clinton and elect Donald Trump. A 2-page classified summary of the Steele dossier was attached to that piece of nonsense and was used to reach the conclusions in this intelligence community assessment. James Comey briefed Donald Trump on the contents of the dossier at a meeting at Trump Tower on January 6, 2017. Confronting the president-elect with claims of sexual compromise by the Russians in what Comey actually referred to as his J. Edgar Hoover movement. Comey never told the president that his campaign had been in fact the target of this filthy operation. Based on leaks from James Clapper, CNN published reports about the dossier and compromise of the incoming president of the United States on January 10th, followed by BuzzFeed's publication of the entire Steele dossier the next day. As a result, the incoming president of the United States was successfully portrayed to the American public and the world as a sexually compromised and blackmailed puppet of Vladimir Putin. In his congressional testimony, James Comey makes clear that he followed that up by staging a series of encounters with Trump, planned by what he called a murder board of his close circle at the upper levels of the FBI, each of them designed to entrap the president. Could this be the 7 people that traveled to an undisclosed location to hold a very private and highly secured, guarded meeting? Andrew McCabe, James Comey, John Brennan, Loretta Lynch, Susan Rice, Sally Yates, James Clapper. He recorded each of these encounters in contemporaneous memorandum, which for evidentiary purposes have an advantage over wiretaps. Such memos are considered to be high-grade evidence, and they are much easier to manipulate than wires. According to Comey, these classified and unclassified pieces of fiction were leaked to the press. Imagine that, after Comey was fired to provide the justification for Robert Mueller's appointment as special prosecutor. Lee Smith, in his January 2nd Federalist article, contends, with documentary evidence, that much of the dossier is simply drawn from public source postings, some of which are foreign language publications, with embellishments by Steele to change actual events into nefarious crimes. In other words, there are no real Russian sources. Others have made a similar comment about the dossier's most salacious and incendiary allegation that Trump cavorted with prostitutes in Moscow who urinated on the bed in which the Obamas had slept. This is outrageous. This seems to be simply a rejiggered revival of 2009 British propaganda stories about a former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi spending the night with a prostitute in a hotel room in Rome and defiling a bed in which Putin had slept. I mean, no one said that the British are original. Against all odds, President Trump is defeating this infectious disease that has infiltrated and spread throughout our government since World War II. It is now up to we, the people, to get the truth out to the masses and help President Trump save our republic and return power back to the people.